Hello, my name is Carly Cretney-Peterson, and this is my draft instructional design plan for Info 250. Okay, so the whole goal of what I'm creating is a teen volunteer orientation presentation and some supporting materials to help train those teen volunteers at my library branch. So here's how I applied the 7-step model to my instructional design plan. So first, teen volunteers need to be trained in expected work duties. And so as far as learner characteristics, they're often coming in with little previous knowledge and very little work experience, so I have to work with that. Extant materials, there are a few things like shelf reading logs, book cleaning logs, and volunteer hours folder with other logs where they put in their hours that they volunteer at the library that they need to know. And some of those materials already exist that I need to kind of coordinate with for the training. The teacher's me, but the goal is that any librarian or library assistant or technician that works at my branch would be able to do this with these materials. Looking at goal analysis, I was outlining my institutional analysis in a diagram, and that was very helpful for step 2. Being able to visualize for me the specifics and create categories of needed information to cover was incredibly helpful. And then step 3, I really started looking at how teen volunteers generally won't have a clear understanding of what the library does when they walk in. So I have to be clear about that, and it might be their first work experience. So they need to learn basic work expectations as well. So they also need to know the alphabet and be able to follow directions. So how do I know if they fulfill that ahead of time? Well, they give an application ahead of the orientation, so I can gauge before the orientation their skills and experience to make sure they can do it. Okay, step 4 was, for the learning outcomes, really helpful to develop those specific goals. So, by the end of the orientation, I wanted them to be able to understand the basic expectations of their volunteering duties, like checking in with staff, logging their hours, adhering to a weekly shift. Also, once they were done, I wanted them to understand the need to assist staff with programming, such as preparation of materials, setup of programs, assisting them with setting up, taking down, and running programs. And then after the completion of the orientation, I wanted them to understand the expected behaviors of appropriate conduct for teen volunteers, meaning, wear their volunteer badge, wear closed-toed shoes. There's a whole long backstory for why that is. Engage with library patrons in a friendly way. Don't spend the whole time on your phone, and really develop a teamwork mindset to be best supportive of the library. Okay, and then moving on to step 5, I was looking at this really helped me lay out, okay, what should I introduce first and how do I go about that? So it's making sure I set it up in a way where it builds upon itself. So the specific instruction delivery is going to be a slide presentation kind of like this, and demonstrations of things like shelf reading, book cleaning, things they need to know how to do. It's kind of funny, the book cleaning, it seems logical, but it's actually harder than it seems. And then I want to use a scenario to test their understandings. So as far as learner participation, it will be somewhat passive for the lecture aspect of the orientation, but there will be follow-up questions and more active opportunity for scenario and demonstration parts. And I do want to have some assessment right away and then some later check for comprehension. Okay, step 6. My design is going to be in person, but I was able to, through the step, conceptualize how could I adapt this in the future to different modalities, like to make it an async online thing, especially as I have several jobs, and this is one of them, so it would be kind of nice to have a more automated thing I could hand to volunteers to have them get trained, at least partially. I also plan to use clips from YouTube, such as what is the Dewey Decimal System, because a lot of them aren't going to know that, and things like Canva to make pretty slides like this. And then for step 7, formative assessment, I want to use follow-up questions and a think, pair, share scenario activity during the actual orientation itself. And as far as summative assessments, a quiz at the end of the orientation that would be like a real quick 5-question quiz with the main points I want them to take away. And then a quick maybe 15-20 minute follow-up interview after their second volunteering shift. That way I can address any of the questions that actually come up on the job and kind of be able to reiterate anything they weren't clear about before that. So that's, pretty much the model for me, or how I applied that to what I'm trying to make for my library.